All right, good morning. It's 8 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the final week of the class. And really the only thing you have this week is your week 8 discussion along with your final project. So really what I'm going to be focusing on today is aspects of the final project that can probably help you out in successfully completing it. A couple of admin notes I want to mention. With this being the last week of the course, this coming Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, that is the cutoff date for you to submit anything. I cannot take anything submitted after that deadline. That includes this final project or any previous assignment that you would like to resubmit to have graded again. Unless there are verifiable extenuating circumstances, nothing will be accepted after this coming Tuesday night. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So for your final project, what you have to do is basically you have like a media rental system. That's basically what it boils down to. You have some classes, you have some media, some ebooks, movies, some CDs. Then you have a manager class, which manages all that media for you. And then you have a media rental system that allows you to check stuff out, purchase things, look things up by title, and so on and so forth. So what I will do, I will make an example for you about a car dealership. It'll be somewhat similar to what you have to do for your assignment, but we'll kind of focus on cars. And then, of course, you'll have to modify it. You'll have to adapt it to work for, what your project is asking you to do. Okay. So for example, let's start out by making a car class. So this will be kind of equivalent to what your media class is. Let's call it a car. It'll have some variables. Oops. It'll have a make. It'll have a model. It'll have a, well, I'm probably stopping, the year it was manufactured, and that's enough. Now let's have a constructor for the car. And as parameters, we'll give it the make, give it the model, and we'll give it the year, right? And of course, we'll save those into the class instance. There we go. So there's our basic car, right? And our car has make, model, and year. Okay, so just like for your assignment, an ebook, extends a media, or a DVD extends a media. They're both types of media, right? So we'll make a gas car. So a gas car will extend the car. And why does it extend car? Because a gas car is a car. It's just a more specialized kind of car, right? And so what are some variables that a gas car would have that just a car in general does not have? So if we look back at a car at the super class, we can see it has the make, the model, and the year. And remember, if these variables exist in the super class, that means they also exist in the gas car. Even if we don't specifically type them out here, the gas car still has these variables because it's extending a car, okay? But one thing you should know here is when this says private, right? We've talked about this before. When a variable is private, that means it can only be accessed in that class and no other classes, right? But let's say we want a variable that can be accessed by the class or any subclasses. gas car is a subclass of car because it extends it. So for example, let's look at year. If we want to access the year in the gas car, actually let's make the constructor real fast, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So for gas car, we also need the make, the model, the year, and we'll store the miles per gallon, right? Because a gas car has a miles per gallon variable. So for the gas car, we need to call the super constructor, give it the make, the model, and the year. And then we'll save the miles per gallon. I'll get back in 1 second to what I was talking about as far as this year. So let's make the gas car first. Okay. So let's, what can we do with the gas car? Let's figure out what the price should be. So what's the price of a car? Well, actually, no, we don't need that yet. Let's finish out this example, and then we can go back to the price. All right. So there's our car, make, model, and year. There's the constructor for the car. Here's the gas car with it calls the superclasses make, model, and year, and then it also stores the miles per gallon because that's unique to a gas car. Okay, let's make an electric car. An electric car will also extend a car. What is a variable an electric car would have that a car just in general doesn't have? Well, let's have it have battery charge. If it's 100% charged, 50% charged, whatever the case is. So let's make the constructor for the electric car. You still need to give it the make, the model, the year, and we also need to give it the charge, right? And I misspelled this, battery charge. We need to call the super constructor, give it the make, the model, and the year. And then we also need to save the charge level, right? So let's make the toString method so that whenever we print out a car, we can get some useful information from it. And what is it going to look like? We'll just say, it'll say, say the make plus the model and the year. And then we will just return that string. All right. So that's what the baseline car does. So let's go back to our main. Let's make a few of these. So we'll have a car. Car 1 is a new gas car. What do we got to give it? We got to give it the make. Ford. I don't even know what car's Ford. Let's call it Jeep Wrangler. Wrangler, year, say 2015, and it gets 18 miles per gallon. Okay. We'll have a car 2. There's a new electric car. And it's a Ford Fiesta. I don't even know if those are really electric cars, but we'll go with it. Say 2018, and its battery level is charged at 75%. All right. Okay. Made 2 cars. Let's just print them out so we see what's going on. Print ln, we'll print car 1 toString and car 2 toString. All right. Let's run it. And there we go. It prints out, our gas car and then our electric car. But let's say we want to print out here that it is a gas car or that it is an electric car. Well, how can we do that? Well, in car, this is what the toString looks like, make, model, and year. So if it's a gas car, let's override that method, the toString, and we'll do something custom here. We'll say it'll start out with gas car, and then we'll do all the stuff from the superclass. So what will happen here is that if it's a gas car, the toString will be this string gas car plus whatever the super toString is. And the super toString is this stuff right here, which is make, model, and year. Likewise, we can do almost the same thing in the electric car. Except instead of gas, we'll say electric. Let's run that. Okay, so now you see here we have a gas car, that's that. We have an electric car, that's that. All right, so that'll kind of be our baseline framework for our car dealership or these types of cars. Just like in your assignment, you have different kinds of media. For us, we have these different kinds of cars. Actually, let me add one more thing that we will need. Let's add a VIN number in here. Private string VIN. Of course, we need to add it to our constructor now. String VIN. We'll save it. And so we'll start off with the VIN and the toString. There we add the VIN to that. That means in the electric car, we need the VIN as well. And then the same thing in the gas car. And we need the VIN because it acts as kind of an ID for a car. And we'll need those IDs when we're making our dealership system. All right. That should be good. Nope. And then our main, the first thing we need to give it is a VIN. And this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the VIN. And this VIN will be ASDFGH. All right, let's run that. And there we go. We have our gas car with that VIN, make, model, year, and then the same thing for the electric car. Okay, so our cars are working, right? Our cars are working. Okay, so the next thing you have to do for your assignment is you have to make a manager class which manages those cars for you. Well, let's make a manager class, but it'll manage, your manager will manage your media. My manager will manage my cars. So let's kind of go down through the assignment and kind of do these one at a time the same way, read one list at a time. So the first thing under your manager, it says store a list of media objects. Well, we're not doing media, we're doing cars, right? So we'll still have a list of cars. Okay. Let's make the constructor real fast of my manager. Cars equals new array list of cars. All right. So there I have a list of cars. Next line has functionality to load media objects from files. That's the rub. Okay, so how do we load media objects from files? Well, let's just say we have a method, public void load car from file, and we'll give it the file name. So now how will we do this? And this is really the crux of what this assignment is about being able to load files, right? Load media from files. But here we're going to load a car from a file. Okay. Well, first of all, let's look at how do we open up a file. And then we'll look at how we can read from it and how we can make a car out of it. Okay. So let's open a file. Oops. A file. File equals new. Oops. Let's resolve that. New file. Inside of here, we can give it the file name. Okay. The file's just a file. Okay. So that will open up that file. Right. Now let's start reading from it. We can read from it with a scanner. This new scanner file. Scanner. Why does it give me a red squiggly? Oh, because of an exception. An exception. There we go. We'll say it throws a file not found exception. All right. So after we open the file, we need to make sure that we close it after we're done with it. There we go. So in between here is where the important stuff happens. So we need to read from the file and we need to make a car out of it, right? So let's read from the file. And this can actually be done a million ways. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, right? It's going to be done a lot of different ways. I'm going to present to you a fairly easy way to do it, but you can certainly do variations on this. So before we start reading in the file, let's actually make a file of a car. Okay, so let's go here. Not that one. Let's go here to my file, CMIS 242, and let's make a file here. There's my command prompt. There we go. Make a file called ecar.txt. We'll make one called gcar.txt. We'll make one gas and one electric car. All right. So let's look at the electric car first. So we'll have them side by side. There's an electric car, and this will be the text file for a gas car. Okay, electric car, gas car. So what do we need to know in the file to help us make an electric car? Well, we can look down here at the printout. For an electric car, we need the VIN, we need the make, the model, and the year, right? And actually, for electric car, we also need the battery charge, right? You know, let's look at the constructor for an electric car. To make an electric car, we need the VIN, the make, the model, the year, and the charge. Okay, so let's go back to our files for electric car, and let's give it the VIN 4567889. Let's give it the make, so Tesla. The model will be a Model S. The year will be 2018, and the charge level is 54%. So what I did, I kind of put each one of those on their own individual line, right? And you'll see why I did that to really make reading it in very simple. Let's make this smaller so we can have the text file up at the same time. There we go. There's our text file with our car. So let's read this stuff in and make an electric car out of it. Okay. So what's the first thing we have? We have the VIN is equal to the scanner dot read line. So you should know by now what scanner.nextLine does. It reads the entire line of a file and stores it in this variable. So when I do the scanner.nextLine, it reads this line and stores it in this bin. You should see where I'm going here. Scanner.nextLine again. So it read this line for the VIN. It read this line for the make. Let's do the same thing for the model, the year, and the charge percent. This is the model. This is the year. And that's the charge level. But we know that the year is actually an integer, and the charge level is actually a float. So what you can do here is, when we do the scanner next line for the year, it read this, but it reads it as a string. So we need to convert this string into the actual integer, and we can do that with integer.parse int. There we go. It'll turn that string into an integer. And same thing with this float, we can do float.parse float. There we go. So now I have opened up the file, whatever this file name is. I'm reading the VIN, the make, the model, the year, and the charge off here one line at a time. And now I just need to make an electric car out of that with the VIN, make, model, year, charge, right? And then since we're loading that car from the file, we'll save it in our cars array list. This.car, this.cars, add that car. Okay. Seems pretty easy so far. So let's go into our main. And so instead of having these individual cars, let's now have a manager. Make a new manager. And now we will load a car from this file. And I just called this file ecar.txt, ecar.txt. Okay. But that works all well and good, but we need to be able to print it out to make sure it got in there. So for the manager, let's have the manager with a toString method. And for the manager, we'll just loop through all the cars and print out all the cars. So for car, and this.cars, we'll have a string that starts out blank. We'll add on to the string the car.toString. And we'll make a new line after each car. And then we'll just return that. So what I'm going to do is whenever I do the manager.toString, we start with an empty string. We loop over all the cars. We add on to that string whatever the car toString is, and then we make a new line, and then we return that as the toString for the whole manager. Let's go back and electric car real fast. And remember, so the car does the VIN, the make, the model, and the year. Electric car says electric car. Then it has all that information. But then also let's add on the charge level here. Plus this.charge. Likewise, let's add the miles per gallon on here. Just add MPG miles per gallon. Okay. So now whenever I run this, it should work just fine. Oops, let's go to our main. And then we'll print out our manager. There we go. Let's run this and see what happens. There we go. Look, I have loaded this from the file. This electric car, if you look at all that information, you can see it is right here for my ecar file, right? So one more time how we did this, we made a manager. We did the manager load car from file, and we gave it the file name. So we look at the manager load from car, load from file. We open the file. We get a scanner for the file. We read in the VIN, the make, the model, the year, and the charge, one line at a time. We make an electric car based on those values read in. We add it to our list of cars, and then we just close the scanner. And then that's it. That's how we load an electric car. Let's do a gas car. So actually, so for a gas car, it should be about the same. We should have the VIN, the make, the model, the year, and it gets the miles per gallon. Let's say it gets 33 miles per gallon. Okay. But now we've run into a little bit of a problem here. So for our load car from file, I knew I was doing an electric car because just for my first example, I knew it was an electric car. So here we made the electric car, right? But now we have a text file. One has an electric car and one has a gas car. Now, how do we know the difference? How do we know when we should make an electric car and when we should make a gas car? Because your file name may not always be eCar. It could be, whatever file name you want to have. Likewise for the G car. So you can't rely on what the file name is for what kind of car is inside of it. So you need some way to differentiate between an electric car and a gas car. Here's how we can do that. As the first line here, we can put it's an electric car. And for the first line here, we can tell it it's a gas car. Just like for your assignment for your media files, maybe the first line in your media file is music CD, or it's ebook, or it's DVD, or something like that, something that allows you to differentiate between which different types of media it is. I'm going to use this first line to differentiate between what type of car, either an electric car or a gas car. And it doesn't, it's coincidence that this is the name of the class. Really, I could put a G there for gas. I could put an E there for electric. I could put ASDF there for electric. It really doesn't matter what I have here, as long as it's different from gas car. And in my code, I can differentiate between the two. You'll see what I'm talking about. But I'm just going to name it the same as the class, but that's mere coincidence. Electric car, gas car. So here, before the VIN, because this is the VIN, so now it's before the VIN. So before the VIN, we're just going to say it's the type. Scanner next line. So now we have this type. So do we make an electric car? Or do we make a gas car? It depends on what the type is. If the type if it equals an electric car, we want to do something. Else, if the type equals a gas car, we want to do something. If it's neither one of those, then we've done something wrong. So we can have just a generic car here. So if it's an electric car, we can say that car is equal to a new electric car. And it'll be the VIN, the make, the model, the year. Now, this isn't always the charge anymore. If we look at our file for an e-car, it is the charge there on that line. For gas car, it's actually the miles per gallon, right? So we don't really know if it's going to be a float or an integer, right? But we can do that like this. MPG equals integer dot parse int scanner. Oops. Next line. Model year charge. There we go. I'll explain it here in a second after I make it. New gas car. Then make model year MPG. And then we'll add it. Okay, so what did I do here? So for the electric car and the gas car, they have all of this in common. The first 5 lines, actually. The first line is the type, the VIN, the make, the model, the year. The gas car is type, make, model, excuse me, type, VIN, make, model, year, right? So that's what I read here at the beginning. I read the type, VIN, make, model, and year. They start diverging on that next line, meaning this is the charge level as a float. This is the miles per gallon as an integer. So I don't read that outside of the if statements, because if I put it right here after year, I don't know if I should read a float, or I don't know if I should read an int. But here I do. Once I look at the type, if it's an electric car, well, I know the next line is a float, that's the charge. And then I can make that car an electric car. Or if the type is a gas car, I know the next line is going to be an integer, that's the miles per gallon. And then I can make the car a gas car. And so once I make either the electric car or the gas car, I can just add it to my list of cars, and then I can close my scanner. And what you can put here in the else, you can put whatever you want. I'm just going to put a print statement that says unknown car type, and then I'll just print out what the type is. We'll see that in action here in a second. All right, so now let's run our main. So we did the manager load car from file to eCar. If we just keep it like it is, only do the electric car. There we go. We still read that electric car from the file. It's an electric car with that VIN, make, model, year, and charge. Now we can also load a gas car. And run it. There you go. We have an electric car and we have the gas car. And you can notice that they are properly identified as electric or gas. It is properly identified if it's miles per gallon or if it's the charge. Okay. What happens if we put a file that does not exist? Excuse me, that's not what I meant. What if we put, say, we accidentally left the R off of there. We just said elect CA. You know, what's going to happen if we run that? It's going to get to that else statement because car is null. Okay, let's go here. Manager. Yep. If it's not any of those, we just want to return, because if it's not electric car or gas car, we don't know what kind of car it is, so we don't want to try to add it. That's what that error was from. Let's run it. There we go. We tried to do that first one, electric car, but we misspelled it right there. So it doesn't know it's electric car, but it's still able to do the gas car. So now we have an electric car and a gas car. There we are able to load them into our manager and then print them out. Okay, that reading from file is part of a real big part of the assignment. And there, just like that example, I've showed you how to read them from the file. Okay. So let's step back a second and think, let's add a couple more files first, and then we'll see how to load all of the files at one time. So we have electric car. Let's make a couple of these. Make 2 electric cars, 2 gas cars, E car 2 and G car 2. Let's edit those so they're a little bit different. So we have this electric car at E car 2. Let's give it a different VIN. Give it a different make, different year, different charge level, just so we can see the difference whenever we're running it. There's the gas car. There's another gas car. Let's give it a different VIN, different make, different model, different year, and different miles per gallon. Okay. So now we have these 4 files, excuse me, of 4 different cars. So part of your assignment is you need to be able to read in all of the media files in a given directory, right? So let's read these all in at one time. Let's go to our main. We create a manager, but instead of specifying individually which cars to load, we're just going to load them all from a specific directory. All of the files in that directory. Okay. Let's go here. Where are these at? Let's make a directory called cars. Let's put all these files in there. All right, so now you see we have this directory cars with all those files in there. All right, so let's ask the user what directory that they want to open. And what's it look like? We have this thing called a J file chooser. J file chooser, new J file chooser. And there's a bunch of different things you can set with it. We're going to keep it the most basic. So we're going to say if the J file chooser dot show open dialog, if that is equal to the J file chooser approve option, then we're going to do something. So what's happening here? The J file chooser is a built-in Java class that brings up basically a file browser for you that allows you to select a file or a directory. Okay. So what happens when we do the show open dialog? It'll show that dialog. And then if we click the OK button, it'll be equal to this and we can do some work. If they click the cancel button, then we don't want to do something. Don't load files. User click cancel. User selected a file or directory. So we want to do something. So if they selected a file or directory, we first need to see if it's a directory. If, one second, there we go. Oops. Files be the selected. Yep. Equal to J file chooser dot selected file. So if the selected is a directory, so if it's a directory, then we want to load all the files in it. So again, what's happening here? I'm showing the open dialog. If it's the approve option, meaning the user selected a file or directory, we're going to get which one they selected. We're going to make sure it's a directory. And if it's a directory, we want to get all of the files inside that directory. One second. Okay. So how do we get all the files inside the directory? Well, there's some other methods we can use. You say for file in the selected dot list files. So what's happening here is we're getting the selected one. If it's a directory, then we're going to iterate through all of the files in that directory. So now when you say, is the file a file? If it's a file, now we can load it. We can do manager dot load car from file. The file dot, yeah, absolute path is usually the best one to use. Let's put a little print here so we can know when it's doing this. Print ln loading car from, and then we'll just say where it's loading it from. Wow, seems it's really not that much code, but that's how we can let the user choose a directory and how we can load all of the files in that directory as cars. All right, so let's go through, let's let it load that, and then at the end, we'll still print out the manager. So let's run it. There we go. Here's my J file chooser that popped up. That's this right here, this J file chooser. Let's find that car directory. There it is. There's the cars directory. Now, we don't want to select an individual file because, you know, we're making sure we selected a directory. We just want to select the directory. Open. Oops. Delete that. Oh, why doesn't it let me select it? Hold on a second. I think I got to put an option in here to allow a directory. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, also have that in jfilechooser.set file selection mode. We have to tell it we want directories, files only, or directories only. There we go. Let's run that. There's jfilechooser. Let's get that cars directory. There we go. So look what happened here. So we did loading car from that location, loading car from there, loading car from there, loading car from there. And how did it do it? So this is the directory that I chose with the J file chooser. If I clicked OK, we get the approve option. So I get the selected, which is the directory that I selected. If it is a directory, which the cars was a directory, we're going to iterate over all of the files in that directory. These are all the files in the directory. We're going to make sure it is a file. And then we print out that we're loading the car from it. And then we call the manager load car from file. So that's how you can take and load an entire directory of media files into your manager. We did it with cars, but the same concept works with your media files. Okay, last part I'm going to cover is, excuse me, for your assignment, you need to be able to rent out media, and then you have a flag in your media that says if it's rented out or not. And if you rent it out, you need to save back to the file if it's rented out or not. You need to update your file, right? Okay, let's do the same concept here, but let's do it if we have sold a car or not. Okay, if a car is sold or not. So let's add another variable to our car that says whether it's been sold or not. And let's just say by default, actually, no, we'll have it in here. Boolean sold. Okay, so we just have another variable that says sold. And let's add that on here as more information that's printed out. All right. So that means we have to update our electric car to have this sold. And update the constructor, the super constructor. Same thing for the gas car. Same. Now our files need to have whether it's sold or not. So for the first electric car, let's say no, not sold. Car 2, we'll say it is sold, yes. And just like we had for electric car, the actual word you use here can be up to you. You can choose whatever you want. I'm just going to use yes for sold or no for not sold. This gas car will say is not sold. And this gas car, we say yes, it is sold. Okay. So why do we need to do that? Because whenever we load from a file now, we need to read in if it's been sold or not. Okay. It'll work. Actually, it'll work easier if we put the sold before the miles per gallon, so on and so forth. Like I said, the order you put these in here, completely up to you, as long as that is the order that your code reads them in. All right, so for our cars, we read the type, VIN, make, model, year, and now we need to read in if it's sold or not. Let's have a Boolean sold, Boolean.parse Boolean from the scanner. Next line. There we go. Now for these constructors, we'll add on the sold. So that's all I had to do to update my code to account for this sold or not sold. So let's run it. And when we run it, you're going to see that. Oh, sorry. It's actually probably going to crash and give me an error. And you'll see why here in a second. Let's make sure it gives me the error. There it crashes. Yeah, there it crashed. Save, save, save. Gotta make sure I got all of these saved. Okay, they're all saved. The reason why it's erroring is because this parse Boolean is expecting a true or a false. So actually, let's turn these to true and falses. Make our life easier. Oops. Can't remember which ones I've done already. True, false, true, false. Let's try that. Desktop, CMIS, cars, open. No line found. Well, let's look at what I'm doing wrong for a second. So we read type, VIN, make, model, year, sold. It's crashing on the parse. Everybody makes mistakes. All right, let's look at my desktop. CMIS, cars. There you go. Got you right here. Is everything right so far? Make, model, year. Yep. Let's get the sold. Sold is false. Which file is this? This is the ecar.txt. Is this one? That's crashing for some reason. Where's Boolean? You have to give me a second to troubleshoot why it is giving me that error. Everything's right up to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This might actually be an error in Java. String sold. Let's just read it like this. You see debugging in real time. So that equal, oops, EQALS, true, true else false. Oh, yeah. All right, let's try this and let's debug it and see what we're doing wrong. Desktop, CMIS, cars directory, open, there we go. Always look right. Sold is, oh, for some reason it is not. I think it's reading an outdated file or something. Let's clean our projects. Rebuild project. For some reason, it's not picking up the changes that I made into the file. See, what's happening here is when I'm reading, after I read the year, I'm reading the sold, which is saying is that 0.54. Which if I look in here, I have this as the year. It's kind of skipping over this, which is telling me, oh, I think I know why. Cars. Yeah, sorry. It's reading these cars instead of cars in that directory. So that's what the problem is. So let's open up these cars. There we go. As you can see now, this doesn't have the true or false in there. Versions. All right, so true, that one is sold. False, not sold. True, it is sold. False, it is not sold. Let's put all this stuff back like it was. There we go. Now let's run it and live happily ever after. Our chooser, desktop, CMIS, cars, open. There we go. Now it works. Okay. So you see here, my electric car has all the information, and now it says sold is true. This gas car sold is true. And this electric car, the Ford Fiesta, sold is false. And this gas car, the sold is false. If if you look through the files, you can see, between the different trues and the different falses. Okay. So now, how do we update this file if we sell a car? Well, first we need to be able to sell a car. So let's add to our manager method. So this load car from file works fine. All those work fine. Let's have one that's sell a car, and we'll sell it by the VIN number. Okay. Then we'll have another method, get car by VIN. Actually, we don't need that one. Let's do sell car. So if we sell a car, right, what do we need to do? Well, first we need to find that car. Car, and it's dot cars. If the car.vin, we need a get VIN method. Public string get VIN. Return the VIN. So now we can do if the car get VIN is equal to this VIN. Don't got too much longer left. Okay. We want to sell that car. Okay. So let's we'll change it to be sold. Public void set. If it's sold, boolean sold. This dot sold equals sold. Car dot sold. Boolean sold. We'll either set it to true or false. Sell car, true or false. All right, sold. And then we can return because we found the car. All right, one step at a time. So let's go back to our main. So we read in all of these. We'll print them out. Let's sell one of the cars. Manager dot sell car. Which car? Which one's false right now? This ecar2 is false. That's the VIN. Let's sell that car. And then we'll print out the manager again. Let's run it. So as you can see here, I'm kind of going through building it piece by piece. I'm not trying to do everything at one time. Let's build it piece by piece. So I'm our cars directory. There we go. So if we look here, which car was this? This was the Ford Fiesta. So you see here the Ford Fiesta. It was sold as false. Sold is still false. 789. All right, did something wrong. Manager.sell car. Car set sold. And car set sold. Well, let's see what we did wrong here. Maybe it didn't find the car by that VIN number. All right, desktop, this, cars, okay. Don't need that. There you go. So this car has the VIN 456789. So that does not match. Nope. This car is QWERTY. That VIN does not match. This car is that. No, it says it does not match. Let's try to run it again. Oh, not equal to the string VIN, equal to the variable VIN. There we go. Now let's run it and watch it. Watch the magic. Desktop, CMIS, cars, open. There we go. So now we have our Ford Fiesta sold as false. Now we have our Ford Fiesta sold as true. But now how do we persist that to a file? Okay. How do we persist that to a file? So what we can do, we need to remember what file it was loaded from. So let's go back to the car. Let's add another variable. That's the file name. This will be the file that it was loaded from. Save it in there. Oops. And that means with our other constructors, we need to add it in there. Same thing for the gas car. Same thing in our manager now. When we are constructing them, you know, it's supposed to be the VIN, make, model, year, charge, sold, and the file name. Well, we had the file name right here given as a parameter. So let's save that. Give that to the constructor. And then let's just update the car again, and let's show what file it was loaded from. This is a little bit of overkill, but being able to view all the data is useful for debugging. Save it and run it. Go desktop, CMIS, car, open. And now you can see in here, we have the file name where it was loaded from. So since we have the file name it was loaded from, we can now save the car back, right? So let's look back at our car. So every time that we change whether it was sold or not, we need to update the file. If we set the sold to false, or if we set the sold to true, we need to save it back into the file, right? So let's do that. We'll set the sold. We'll open the file. File, the file name. One second. Excuse me. Actually, the easiest way here will be a file writer. There's a bunch of different ways to write files in Java. This is probably the easiest one. File writer is new file writer to that file name. And what do we need to write to it? We need to write the same things that we have right here. We need to write if it's an electric car, if it's you know, all the different parameters here, right? But because electric car and gas cars are a little bit differently, meaning electric car says electric car, gas car says gas car. Electric car has a charge level, gas car has, you know, a miles per gallon. They're a little bit differently, so we need to handle it in their own class. What we can do in electric car, we can override the sold method. So we still want to do the super sold. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that because we still want to change that variable. But now we need to write out this car to back to its file. File writer, file equals new file writer. Now here it goes back to what I was mentioning at the beginning. Because electric car extends a car, it means it is a car. It means it has all of these variables, right? But the thing is, if they're marked private, I can only use them inside of the car. If I want to use them in subclasses, I have to change it to protected. What protected means, it means I can use it in this class or any subclass. And I need to do that because when I write it out to the file, I need to be able to access all those to write it to the file. Right. So there's that. We're accessing the file name to write it to a file name. And then we just write all of the information. So what's first in an electric car? The first thing in an electric car is this electric car. And then \n means to make a new line. What's next? We have the VIN. Now the VIN, then the make, model, year, sold, and percent, right? You got the VIN, the make, the model, the year, the sold, and we got the charge, right? And then we can close the file. So what's happening here is when we call set sold, it'll do the super.set sold, and the super set sold is just changing the sold variable, either true or false. Then we will open up the file and we'll write all the file information back to it, and then we'll close it. And what's really changing here is this sold right here. It's going to be almost the same thing for the gas car, except in gas car, we don't have a battery charge. Well, first of all, it's gas car instead of electric car. We don't have a battery charge level. We have a miles per gallon, right? So let's run this. And remember, manager, if we look at it, well, let's run it and then we'll see that on output. Set sold. There we go. All right. Let's run it. Oh, one thing we're missing. All right, now let's run it. This will be the last thing we're going to do, and then we'll see if there's any questions. All right, there it is. Desktop, CMIS, cars, open it. All right, so program's finished. So if we look, when we read it, this, if we did it right, I hope we did, this Ford Fiesta sold was false. Then we sold the car, based on the VIN. So that Ford Fiesta turned sold true. Now it should have also updated the file. And did it? We actually have to close and open the file. Actually, right here, our editor tells us it changed the file. So if we reload the file, you can see it's true now. It is sold now. And if we run our program again, the Ford Fiesta input string. Did we miss something? Number format exception there. Your first string input 2012. Oh, I think we have an extra space in our output. Yeah. Oh yeah, we got a space at the end of all of these. Electric car. Yeah. I think just in our output we have an extra space. Oh yeah. So you have this extra space before the new line. That's what's throwing us off. Which means we also made that error in the electric car. Right. Which means we need to reset this or delete all the spaces. All right, that should work. All right, so start over again. We'll start off with the false, it is not sold. There we go, load it in. So we have our Ford Fiesta sold as false. Then in our code, we sold the Ford Fiesta. So now our Ford Fiesta is sold, true. Look at our file, it says our file changed. We reload it. You see it is now true sold. So now when we run the program again, our Ford Fiesta starts off in the sold true state. Okay. That is almost everything you need to do for your assignment. For your assignment, you also need to make a menu, click 1 to do this, click 2 to do this. Of course, the assignment says you can do it in a GUI or you can do it just in at the command prompt, command line driven. Either one is fine. This is probably 80-ish% of what your assignment needs to be. You know, we kind of just did it with a car example instead of media. All right. I'll stand by for a couple minutes for any questions you may have. All right, nothing heard. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I cannot accept anything after Tuesday night unless you have an extreme circumstance that must be verifiable. All right, one second, I do have a question. Will you have a chance to review any work before the deadline if we can turn something in today or tomorrow? If you turn in something early, don't submit it on the website, email it to me and just say you would like a review. Now, this is not me grading it. I will not assign you a grade before it's due. And really the reason is, you know, if let's say you submit an assignment to me and I said, no, you need to fix this. And you fix it, then you send it to me again and say, no, fix this. And you know, if you do that 10 times, then you're pretty much guaranteed to get 100 with me just telling you what's wrong with it. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should be judged based on your own work, not judged based on just fixing what I tell you is wrong with it. So I can overall review it and I can point you in the right direction if you're doing something wrong, but I won't grade it and assign you a number grade before the deadline. And if you would like me to do that, just email it to me. Email me the files. And going to what I was saying, I can't accept anything after Tuesday night, so make sure you get anything turned in by then. All right, I'll have this video up here shortly.